A drive in Denver to ban the government from using facial recognition. Maybe the Nuggets and Avalanche blackout is about more than just a contract dispute. The Heather Gardens explosion reminded Coloradans to call before you dig. But could a call have avoided that tragedy? A state legislator unloads on RTD's leadership and hints that if RTD can't fix its problems, the state may step in. And can we talk about those funky clouds that everybody's seeing? Of course we can. It's our show, yours and mine. It's next. Call before you dig. That's not just a Colorado warning. You'll hear that said across America. The investigation into last year's Heather Gardens explosion revealed that no one called 811 before a gas line was struck and the explosion killed a woman at that senior living community in Aurora. Our Marshall Zellinger found even if 811 had been called, it might have just created confusion.
Yellow flags are for gas. When you call 811 before you dig, gas lines are marked with yellow flags in the ground.
The yellow marks, whether it's paint or flag, are universal for gas. It's part of the APWA color code standard, which is the American Public Works Association.
Whitney Nichols with Colorado 811 has a nifty case that looks a lot like a toy chest. It shows the different colors for the different utilities underground. Yellow is for gas, oil, and steam, which made this part of the Heather Gardens explosion investigation stand out. The subcontractor told investigators that Heather Gardens would use white paint marks with yellow flags to mark the sprinkler system.
If someone's going to be marking sprinklers, we definitely wouldn't advise to use a color that is for a different utility type.
Even with the yellow flags for sprinklers, the investigation determined no one called 811 before they dug. Not the subcontractor, not the contractor.
Anytime you're digging, the law says if you're moving or removing earth, if you're disturbing earth, so even if you're doing something as simple as planting a flower bed or a vegetable garden, you still want to contact 811.
Here's a timeline of the investigation. The gas line was hit and the explosion happened on November 16, 2018. In January, fire investigators collected evidence and interviewed the subcontractor who did the digging. Then investigators met with the district attorney's office for the first of 3 updates. It wasn't until June when the subcontractor and Excel turned over records to investigators. In July, the project's contractor turned over records. And in September, the DA's office decided no charges would be filed. So these are examples of the flags that I've shown before. Yellow and red. Red is for electricity. Yellow here clearly is gas. I reached out to Heather Gardens to see if they truly still do put yellow markings for sprinklers. I got a statement from a spokesperson for the community that didn't really address that, so I'm still waiting to hear back from that. One thing I wanted to address in this story is criminally negligent homicide. What's the difference? We had a case, Trooper Cody Donahue, who was killed on the side of the road on I-25, a truck driver, and I was told in that situation you have one driver that you can point. Other drivers in a similar situation did one thing. This driver might have deviated from that. No one can say for sure. Who's responsible for calling 811? Is it the contractor? Is it the subcontractor? There's no standard, and that's why no charges likely were filed here, because you can't point to one thing to say one thing screwed up.
How do you hold one person accountable for a systemic failure? Interesting. All right, thank you, Marshall. NBC Nightly News led off tonight with a story that has topped every one of our newscasts today: the conviction of Patrick Frazee for the murder of his fiancée, Kelsey Barrett. The body of the mother from Woodland Park has never been found. But let's spend an additional moment now hearing directly from the women, the prosecutors who put Frazee away for life, the prosecutors who were focused on justice for Kelsey's family.
They will never enjoy Thanksgiving again. This is a very painful reminder for them. And I think their biggest concern is now they have potential of permanently having custody of Kaylee, although that has yet to be determined. What do they tell Kaylee? What do they tell her about what happened to her family? I know that's a big thought on their mind.
To be able to bring justice for what happened to her is an honor and something I will never forget, and I'm so pleased and thankful for the hard work and diligence that this jury and the work that they did on this case.
And that jury made quick work of the verdict. After 10 days and 60 witnesses, came back guilty across the board in just more than 3 hours. Hate crimes declined for the first time in 4 years across America, but not in Colorado. Today, a new partnership to fight hate in our state was announced, and our Anusha Roy noticed something missing.
Within 2 weeks this month, the white supremacist was arrested for plotting to blow up a synagogue in Pueblo, and Denver police arrested a man carrying an airsoft rifle accused of making anti-Muslim remarks near a mosque. Then an FBI report confirmed the problem of hate in Colorado has become worse, with the number of cases jumping from 106 to 123 last year.
Are these crimes being reported enough?
Everyone standing by the mic said no. And today, the Colorado Coalition Against Hate and the Attorney General said they believe some cases have slipped through the hands of law enforcement and prosecutors.
Train law enforcement. That's so important that they understand what is a hate crime and how to prosecute it.
Then came a familiar ask.
Is my community reporting? Is it reporting regularly? Are the numbers realistic?
More than half of last year's cases targeted people based off their race, ethnicity, what country they're from. And today we noticed there were representatives from the NAACP, the Jewish community, a foundation representing LGBTQ youth, and Interfaith Alliance, but no people of color at the podium.
Because I trust these individuals, because I trust their track record.
Iman Judah works with the coalition but couldn't make it this morning. She said the coalition represents a diverse group of people who've had seats at the table all along. You just didn't see them today.
The report came out fairly quickly than anticipated, and so, we had to act.
The Anti-Defamation League said diverse representation is very important. So is hearing from victims. But today they picked the people who could best speak to the nuts and bolts of the initiative.
Quite frankly, now is where the real work starts.
And because not everyone is comfortable with going to law enforcement, this partnership's also going to be training religious and community leaders. So if people end up reaching out to them, they can help connect with law enforcement. The Anti-Defamation League also published a resource guide online that is talking about everything from how to identify a hate crime to how to help victims.
All right, Anusha, thank you. RTD releases the results of its rider survey this week. That survey where RTD forced people to choose between unreliable service or service cuts. RTD may find that state legislators are so fed up with its struggles that they'll look at legislative options come January. Democratic State Representative Kyle Mullica from Adams County shared his frustration with me.
When you look at the leadership that they've had at RTD, none of their lines are coming in on time or under budget. And that's completely unacceptable. This is a big organization that serves a lot of people, and taxpayers are paying for these things, and you're not delivering the products that they're paying for. And that's the issue that I really have and the issue that my community has.
If there is discussion at the Capitol about the idea of shifting RTD to an appointed board instead of an elected board, would that fix it?
You know, I'm not quite sure if it would fix it. You know, I think that it's a conversation that we have to have. And I think that it goes back to that accountability piece, Kyle, is that how is this accountability happening? You know, how are we going to make sure that the miscues and the things that have gone wrong don't happen again? How are we learning from our mistakes, and how are we making sure that our communities are getting what they're paying for and getting the services that they need? And that's really what I'm looking at. And I think that we have to look at a variety of options for that. I just know from my personal experience so far working with RTD, I just want to see some more accountability for that executive leadership.
Representative Mullica says if RTD is coming to the public asking for another tax increase in the coming years, he doesn't think his community will support it. Denver police are not using facial recognition technology, at least not as far as we know, but there is a group that's gathering signatures to ban it through a ballot measure. They say that it's a civil rights issue and an invasion of privacy.
What their mandate for this type of policing is. Do we want to invest in this as a community, or do we want to say this technology is still too problematic, it's still a little too bumpy, we should just keep waiting on it and bring it back to the voters when the facial recognition software is a little bit more robust, more well developed?
The committee has to collect 8,265 valid signatures by next May to get the issue on Denver's ballot in November. That contract dispute that has had Nuggets and Avalanche games blacked out on Comcast took a turn today with Altitude Sports suing Comcast, accusing them of trying to put the network out of business, perhaps so that Comcast could then run its own sports network featuring those teams. Companies have been fighting over the fees that Comcast and other cable and satellite companies pay to carry those games. Comcast has been paying Altitude those fees for the last 15 years. This lawsuit alleges that Comcast is now using its dominant status as the TV provider in the area to unfairly reduce those fees.
We simply cannot operate at Comcast terms. Our costs would be higher than our revenues, and Comcast knows this because it owns and operates regional sports networks.
Comcast said this lawsuit's meritless. It said that they think that they've made some reasonable offers to Altitude. Altitude did reach a deal with the AT&T-owned DirecTV last month. Still no deal yet, so there continues to be a blackout on Dish Network. We remember a woman who walked through the door closed to others, then held it open for those who followed.
It can be truly life-changing for children to see someone in their classroom leading their work who looks like them, who comes from a similar background that they come from.
Marie Greenwood, the woman who changed learning for students of color in Colorado. Her legacy, next.
It happened again, a beautiful sunset across the Front Range. This picture is sent in from Carol Gibbs out in Parker. Look at those colors. Well, we are looking at a mostly cloudy sky tonight and another mild day tomorrow with highs in the upper 60s. But big changes are coming our way. We're going to see much cooler weather Wednesday and into Thursday. Highs Thursday drop into the low 30s, and yep, we're going to see some more snow. This is going to be a much bigger weather maker for our central and our southwest mountains, where winter storm warnings and watches have been posted. Some locations across the San Juans could get up to 30 inches of snow. Most places 12 to 20 down near Telluride, but then a little bit further to the north, up to a foot around places like Crested Butte. That is good news, especially when we're talking about how dry we've been in that part of the state. Severe drought remains in place. We don't like to get quite that much snow at once, but they need the moisture. It's just going to be a tough system that will be very difficult to travel through, especially across our mountains. For Denver, it could mean some snow here as well. Right now, we're looking at early estimates of 2 to 5 inches of snow, and that'll be Wednesday night and into Thursday. 67 again, our high on Tuesday, but Kyle, we're getting ready for that big temperature drop and hopefully a few more good sunsets in between.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Becky. As she mentioned, just a stunner of a sunset. What time was that, like 3:30 or so? Maybe it wasn't that early. It was early. Last few nights, though, we've had those clouds over Denver that look like the ocean waves. Meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen dives into why.
The surf was up on the Front Range last night at about 5 o'clock. These crashing waves on our inland ocean turning orange and gold high above our heads, captivating people from Parker to Aurora to Highlands Ranch, over Cherry Creek Reservoir and cresting right behind Bailey, the golden retriever in Denver. These amazing clouds are called Kelvin-Helmholtz wave clouds, named after the two scientists that discovered the instability that causes them. Technically, these clouds are called stratocumulus fluctus. Here's how last night's display happened. Air moving out of the northwest got disrupted as it hit the Rocky Mountains, causing waves to form in the clouds. There was a jet of air at about 9,000 feet moving at 20 miles per hour, while the air at about 14,000 feet was moving twice as fast. This is called speed shear. That is what caused the waves to crest and break, creating the Kelvin-Helmholtz wave cloud. These stunning displays are most common in the fall and winter months just after sunrise or near sunset. They're actually very common in our clouds along the Front Range, but to have this type of pronounced definition is very unusual, sometimes only happening once a year. Meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen for Next.
3 years on the air. That's the first time we've been able to use our surf music. We paid for it, I assume, so it's good that we're using it. The Kelvin-Helmholtz instability. Impress your friends with that. Kelvin-Helmholtz instability. It's physics, it's engineering, it's fluid dynamics, the flow of fluids and gases in the atmosphere. That's what's behind those wavy clouds. It's a sign of what appears to be a choose-your-own speed limit adventure in northern Colorado. Next viewer, named Rich, saw this on Harmony Road in Timoth. It's just a la carte traffic laws. You pick whichever law you would prefer to follow at the moment. Or maybe not. No. So here's what happened. All right. So it used to be 45. There's construction in the area. So the town put up a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, but they put a bag over the 45. But then the wind blew, making those wavy clouds, and then away goes the bag. And now they have both signs. They tell us they fixed it. Email pictures of signs to next@9news.com or give us a shout with the hashtag HeyNext. History makers aren't only in history books. If we're lucky, We get to meet them, shake their hand. Marie Greenwood made history in Denver Public Schools, the first tenured African-American teacher in the district's history. And she made an appearance here, well past her 100th birthday, sharing a lifetime's worth of wisdom. Our Byron Reed looks to how Greenwood's legacy continues to change the lives of students.
Anyone who knew Marie Greenwood,
I don't think I ever saw her when she wasn't smiling,
realizes how special a person she was.
She was a woman who approached life with just such love of children, of experiences, and a belief in a better pathway forward, despite having to really overcome some really significant barriers.
Susanna Cordova is the superintendent for Denver Public Schools and says Greenwood's lengthy career in the district broke barriers for people of color.
In 1938, I became the first tenured African-American teacher in Denver.
Greenwood eventually became the first African-American teacher at an all-white school in 1955.
There were many things I could not do. There were many activities I could not attend.
Paving the way for others.
When I made my tenure, it did open it up. They hired 2 more, and it went from there and expanded.
She taught first grade for 30 years in the district and believed in the importance of literacy programs like Each One Teach One, inspired by Greenwood, and is being offered at the school named in her honor.
It can be truly life-changing for children to see someone in their classroom leading their work who looks like them. She really paved the way for so many people who came after her, and we're incredibly fortunate and blessed to have been able to have worked with her for the number of years that she worked in the district.
A legacy Marie Greenwood leaves behind after 106 years.
Only by the grace of God.
Blazing a trail for all to remember.
She faced real examples of racism that she was pretty transparent about, but I don't think I ever saw her when she wasn't smiling.
For Next, I'm Byron Reed.
The most Colorado thing we saw today is an attempt to get around Denver's ban on dogs and breweries. Get yourself a cat. This is Waffles, sitting on a stool at Little Machine Beer, making a whole lot of eye contact with the next viewer named Kendra. She told us that Waffles was in town with its owner, who was at a conference. They struck up a conversation there at the bar. They're grabbing a beer on their way out of town. So years ago, Next told you how Denver cracked down on dogs in breweries, saying that this was some big issue. So we filed an open records request and found out they had all of one verified complaint. We checked back with the city, and they insist that cats are banned too. So there you go, City of Denver. You've got your one cat. But I understand that Waffles has left town. Shelby Chase writes in tonight to say thank you for sharing the story of Marie Greenwood. As a DPS graduate and a teacher of color, her work has paved the way for so many others just like me. And in this month of thanks, Shelby writes, I am so thankful for her. We'll see you next time.